Hey, quick question for you. What if it didn't take a million things out there to become super successful out in life? What if it was just a few habits, a few core principles that you implemented into your life that would really propel you from where you are today to this dream life that you're trying to achieve? Jim Rohn, back in his Challenge to Succeed program, I can hear it talking to me literally as we speak. So I've listened to that so many times. I always recommend that program. If you don't have that, go get that. Listen to Jim. But one of his core principles in that program was that there's about a half dozen things that if you do consistently, that will make up about 80% of the difference. And he talks about those being the core basics, the simple few. And what he's talking about is habits. Our habits are what is going to propel us into the future and to helping us design this life that we're trying to achieve. And it's not a million. If you want to achieve perfect health, there's not a million things you need to do. There's just a simple few. If you want to achieve great wealth in your life for your family, there's not a million things you need to do. There's just some simple basics. As I mentioned, he talked about there's about a half dozen things that make up about 80% of the difference. And that's the discussion we're going to have here today to help you try to achieve more going forward in 2025 here and beyond. So as always, I got my friend Greg Junge here going to join us. And we're going to get into what some of these basic, simple few are, some of the habits that we've implemented into our life, some of the things that we're trying to be better at. Even we're not perfect every day, but we're trying to become more every single day. And with that, if you can take some of the information that we're going to share with you here today, and as soon as you jump off, that's the beauty of it. As soon as you jump off this episode, start going to work and implementing some of these strategies and core values into your life, you can begin to see a great change trajectory with where your life is headed. And that's what we really want for you moving forward. So as always, Greg, hop on, man. Let's talk about some of these simple basics, the basic core principles that it's going to help us move forward with our habits.
Yeah, this is going to be a great conversation. I know the next couple of podcasts, I'm coming off of a Tony Robbins event, so that's going to be sprinkled in, a little bit here and there, and maybe a little bit more on the next episode. But yeah, you mentioned it, the principal core habits. For me, it's more of like the foundational of what's non-negotiable, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more. But yeah, really looking forward to diving into habits because they've really created and shaped my life, changed my life a lot in the past 5, 6 years for sure.
So it's not, so that's even another part of it. And you just mentioned it. Some of the habits that you know that you shouldn't do are just as important as the things that you should do. When you have this goal, when you have this dream, when you're envisioning this future for yourself, whether it's with your family, whether it's with a business, whatever that goal is for yourself, you're going to learn what you should and what you shouldn't do. But then it's having that ability. We're going to talk about discipline today, having the discipline to stick to it when life gets difficult. Over the last few episodes, I forget exactly how far back, we talked about life is like the seasons and going through that grind of summer, going through that grind of the mundane. You might not be seeing the results that you're looking for. You're striving, you're doing all the right things, but it's this discipline to keep sticking to it. It's discipline to keep going when you aren't exactly feeling it, when you're not knowing that it's coming, or when you're not feeling that it's coming. Sometimes that's the best. That's the hardest part. But yeah, I think it's just as important to know what not to do versus what even on top of what to do. I love how you said that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's great. And discipline, I mean, that's my word of the year.
Is it? Is that what you picked? I don't think we've
Yeah,
had that discussion.
I don't think we have either. And I know, we got that, or at least I first heard that from the mastermind where we met with Kyle Wilson. And I don't know if he took it from somebody else. He probably did. He might have. I don't know. Either way, it's a foundational element of, choosing a word of the year that is really going to define your intention for the year. And you really have to stick to it. And that's like the definition of discipline, obviously, is sticking to the word of the year as well. But that's my word of the year. And then, like I said, coming out off of the Tony Robbins event, it really just kind of sparked that fire again of what else do I really need to be disciplined in and with. And we'll kind of get into a little bit of that today. But yeah, that's my favorite new words is the D word is discipline.
D word of discipline. So let me just ask you a little bit more about that as far as what that means to you. Maybe with you explaining that to somebody. I think when you hear words like that, it's like, yeah, I kind of get what that means. But what does in your world, in your achievement, what you're trying to achieve, what does discipline mean to you? We've talked about the seasons before on the podcast, but for yourself, Greg, what discipline? When you think about that for yourself, to make that your word for the year, Tell me more. What does that mean for you?
So previously I thought discipline was very like harsh, military, like, that kind of like, I think a lot of people have that vision of discipline, which is not bad, but it sounds more punishment sometimes of, you know what I mean? And then you get the result, but it's grueling, it's grinding, it's not what you want to do. For me, in the personal development world of discipline, there's a little more grace to it. And for me, it's basically doing the things that you should do. They're going to benefit you now and later, but you really just don't want to do them. Like emotionally, you don't want to go for that run or go for that walk or, skip the ice cream or whatever that is, right? Because in the moment, that ice cream is going to taste good. And not going for a run it's a lot easier to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. And we've all been guilty of probably both of those things. So for
Yes.
me, it's
I'm raising my
really,
hand, folks. Yes,
yeah, I think
I'm guilty of
we're
those
all
things.
raising our hand on that one, right? Um, so for me, I'm really diving into if I'm going to create the best life for myself, Greg 2 years from now is really going to thank Greg now for doing all these things, even though Greg in the present may not want to do those things 100%. But I really have to, remind myself I'm doing this for longevity, for health, for wealth, for all those things that I want in my life. And they're just not going to magically show up. And nobody's here to save me. This is my life, and I have to take responsibility because in 5 or 10 years, if I'm not where I want to be, then it's not Randy's fault. It's not my wife's fault. It's my fault. So that's kind of my understanding of discipline and how I phrase it in my head anyway.
Love it. So yeah, you taking responsibility. That's difficult. A lot of people don't
Hmm.
want to take full responsibility for all aspects of their lives, whether it be from a health, wealth, and legacy standpoint. And that's unfortunate. But if you're listening to us today, folks, you're probably on that side of trying to either you are taking 100% responsibility or you're leaning towards taking 100% responsibility, which is why we're super glad that you decided to join us here today. So just tagging on a little bit more on that discipline piece, because I love this part of the conversation. We'll get into some of the habits and the basics here in just a little bit. But tell me more. Is it so when you're thinking about that for yourself, are you visualizing this? You mentioned like the 2 year from now self. Are you visualizing what that is like? Tell me more about that process. Because in my mind, when I think of discipline, like you said, you think of hard and grueling and you know what I mean, like negative.
Yeah.
Whereas when it feels like it's like pulling you to it, it almost feels like it's a flow. Like you feel like it's almost like well, it becomes a habit. You're moving towards that thing. So the towards part, I guess, is where I'm going with that question as far as is it a visualization? You're seeing yourself in the moment, and then obviously then you can work backwards to to the now, to the today, to help you make those decisions, because I imagine you've got that inner chatter going on. We talk about winning within here on the podcast a lot, right? You have that inner chatter happening that is like, it's like, yeah, I want that ice cream, yeah, I'd love to have that piece of pizza, or whatever it is in that moment for yourself. Is it so the question, visualization, is that part of that process for yourself?
Yeah, it definitely is, especially on the physical, the health side, because, one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lose my last like 10 pounds and get a little bit more muscle. People know I've lost the 60 pounds, but for whatever reason, I just kind of took my foot off the gas and haven't been disciplined to really just get to the end zone and get the body that I really want, and not even get the body for the physical and like look good and all that stuff. I want to just feel good, have energy. I feel like my energy is a little bit lower than where it should be or where I want it to be. But like you mentioned earlier, it's, doing the things that we know we should do, but also doing the things that we are, or avoiding the things that we don't want to do. Right. And looking at it from that perspective, in 2 years, I don't want to be the same person that's trying to lose the last 10 pounds. I don't want to have the same, um, you know, goal every January, resolution every January, the same one that I had the last year, because, a lot of people do that. And I've been guilty of that too. But that means that, what's the point of having a goal if you're not going to achieve it? It's just because then you talk about the mental chatter, and we all have that mental chatter, and the discipline, it really gets, if you, once you get to that point, and I'm not even there yet, but I'm kind of there, you can get rid of that mental chatter because you're not negotiating with yourself of, well, should I have the ice cream? Well, if I have the ice cream, then it's going to taste good, but then I'm going to feel bad about myself because I'm not sticking to my goal, like going back and forth, and you're basically fighting with yourself. Then when you have that discipline, you're like, no, I'm not going to eat, I don't eat ice cream, or I don't drink alcohol, or that's just not something that I I do that's not part of my identity, then it's a lot easier just to say no instead of like, well, I'm on vacation. Like you can always make an excuse to have a drink or ice cream or not go for a run. But once you really solidify that discipline, there's no more negotiating with yourself and there's less chatter and just more, it kind of frees up that mental bandwidth, if you will.
So you're striving for that feeling. You said that a couple of times.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're striving for that feeling of what that person will be in that moment, and that you're trying to achieve that. So I would say that sometimes in my own personal achievement, I still will fall backwards. I still will have that piece of cake or ice cream or whatever
Sure.
from a health standpoint, or I'll have a drink. I've mentioned in the past, I enjoy bourbon. Bourbon, I just enjoy it. It tastes good. I enjoy it. So if I have one, tell me about the process of not beating yourself up over, maybe a little bit of a step backwards, or, I mean, that simple pleasure of just partaking in a little bit, not falling off the wagon, not reverting all the way back to your past self, but understanding that it is that feeling that you're trying to achieve, but then also not beating yourself up over, maybe taking a little bit of a step backwards.
And I think that's a great point. And I think it's more understanding yourself too. If you're able to, have a drink every Friday, but not every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Then
not every
you,
day of the week, right?
yeah, exactly. Because then if you know yourself, if you know you're going to fall off the wagon, then you might be, all right, I need to be 100% unless it's like my birthday or unless it's, certain days of the year, not just a Friday, because, Friday comes once a week and it's easy
Exactly.
to really slip. So I think you really have to understand your psychology and your discipline or your level, that kind of thing, because and you can, you want to have fun in life. You do want to have that bourbon every once in a while, but whatever every once in a while means to you to stay on track to still achieve your goal, we can't tell you that. That's
Right.
something you have
It's
to
a
figure
personal
out,
thing.
and it's trial and error sometimes. And that's the hard part because sometimes you try it and then you get caught in, oh, I'm drinking every night now. And it's really hard to get out of that, even though you know you need to get out of it. So, yeah, that's where trial and error comes in. And you really have to kind of tread carefully sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. So it's that bigger vision of yourself, I think, is
Hmm.
what will pull you through those tough, challenging moments. For myself, with my health, even for right now, I talk about my grandson Rowan. He's the biggest driving force for me. When I think about him, and even as I'm thinking about him right now, he's at the age where he's just very active. My wife and I joke all the time, he's very busy. And he's right, or she's right. He's very busy. He's moving nonstop. He barely lays down to take a nap. So I have to be busy. So, with that said, I know in my mind, I visualize myself a few years from now when he's going to continuously be more busy. And, I want to be out back throwing the ball with him. I want to be whatever. I want to be rolling around, wrestling with him on the floor. All of those different kinds of things. Take him to the park and playing with him, not just sitting on the sidelines. I want to be participating with him. Those are the visions I have, and I'm actually visualizing it literally as we speak. I can see myself doing that, and with that, it allows me then to be disciplined when I don't necessarily want to be. And that's where I think you said from
Hmm.
the very beginning, it becomes easier. The chatter begins to slow down when that vision of who you are trying and working to become is bigger than the current version of yourself, because it just becomes a lot easier. You begin to win within, because that's going to allow you then to win without. Your outside exterior environment will change based on the discipline and the actions and the habits that you're going to set up today, which is why it's super fun in this conversation. Which, yeah, love that, man. That was kind of a little bit of a detour from the topic, but yeah, I know we wanted to talk about discipline. That was awesome. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you want to add with discipline?
I mean, the last thing I guess I'll say about that is just, yeah, once you get into discipline and habits, you turn the things that are, you know, you're kind of interested in doing into non-negotiables. Then that's when you flip the switch and you're not negotiating with yourself, and it's just you become that person who does this or doesn't do that, and there's no more chatter and it just really frees you up. And but the non-negotiable part is it's a fun switch. I'm kind of feeling that right now with one of my habits, with waking up at the same time out of bed, even if I slept great or if I slept horribly, get out of bed because it's going to benefit me and set me up for the day. So I'm kind of like experiencing that right now, and it's feeling great because yeah, I just wake up and go, and there's no like, well, maybe I'll sleep in, it'll feel good. Nope, I'm going to feel better and proud about myself that waking up at that same time and just getting my day going and staying in my routine.
Love that. Yeah. Turn your shoulds into musts.
Hmm.
I know that sounds simple. That's an easy sentence for me to say. Doesn't make it any easier when you're in your day-to-day activities. I get that, folks, but at the same time, when you start to do a little bits at a time, turn some of those shoulds into musts, and then that chatter, like we're talking about, is going to start to simmer down a little bit. It's not going to be so active in your mind, and then it's going to allow you to take different actions. And it's those actions, it's those different actions and habits, it's what's going to create this different life that you've got moving forward. So let's pivot a little bit. Let's get into some of these habits I mentioned before we hit record here today. Just want to go over the pillars of the health, wealth, and legacy here on the Rich Mind Podcast. Just want to go over some of the basics that we're trying to implement into our lives. Maybe give the listeners some ideas for them to think about as they finish up with this episode today. But it's literally, folks, it's the basics. Like Jim just said, it's about a half dozen things makes up 80% of the difference. That Pareto principle. I don't know are you familiar with the Pareto principle, Greg?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing. It's called the 80-20 rule. So there's 80 or 20% of the things make up 80% of the difference. So it's focusing on the simple things, the basics. My son, I love him. He's great. So he's 27. And so it's like every now and then we'll just be having a conversation. I'm like, man, what's going on? What you working on? He goes, Dad, just focusing on the basics. Just focusing on the basics.
Smart
And I'm
kid.
like, well, and it's only because I've been beating that into his head now for a long time, right? So yeah, I just keep reminding them that if you can't do the basics, if you can't get really good at the basics, you're going to struggle at the larger parts of your life, which is where that extra 20%. So it's not 100%. Half dozen thing doesn't make up 100% of the difference. You're still going to have some challenges in there as well. But this focusing on the basics is going to give you the ability to navigate, fluctuate, right? When the challenges of life show up, this chatter that's going on in your mind, like Greg mentioned through this discipline piece, it's going to allow you then to succeed more often than not, which if you do that and keep stacking those wins, that's when you're going to achieve this dream life, whatever goal you've set for yourself. So anyways, let's start with health. I know, Greg, that's a big pillar for both of ours. I know I'm focusing a lot more on my health. You've been focusing on your health for several years now, and you've had tremendous success. You're trying to implement even more things. We talked about that already, even here today. But what are some of the simple basics that you focus on literally every day that have made the biggest difference? It's like move the needle. It's moved the needle to you losing this 60 pounds, for you to be feeling better. Now, you mentioned that you're not 100% where you want to be, right? That's that last 20% that we're talking about. But to get to that 80%, what are some of the things that you've implemented in your own life?
Yeah. So I'll list them off and then we can dive into them. But for one of them for me is hydration and water, which, we talked about before we hit record here a little bit. Walking for me has been huge. Just getting outside, getting the sun, getting the morning, getting your mind kind of going for the day. And then sleep. Sleep is one that I'm currently struggling with, but I'm trying to get over. So I know sleep is not easy for people. It doesn't, it's not just like you close your eyes and you get great sleep. There's a lot of talk about chatter at the end of the day, and a lot of things that kind of get in the way of good sleep. But I would say those are the three basics that I'm working on, the sleep part, and then the other two, water and walking, have been just really instrumental for mental focus. Obviously, hydration is just good for the body and flushing out things and everything. So those are the three top of mind that are just foundational for me. How about
Love it.
yourself?
Yeah, so I've got a few as well. A couple of them will probably be similar or the same, and then yeah, I've got another one that I'm working on literally right now. That's really, I feel like it's doing really well for me also. And then maybe we'll give some people some resources, maybe some places to check out some of the things where people can go check out for themselves. Some of the things that we're doing. To help ourselves from our health standpoint. But yeah, water hydration is definitely one of them. One of the things that I had a personal trainer back in the day, a few years ago, and one thing he was always teaching me, and you may or may not have heard this, folks. So if this is new to you, that's great, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. Try to share some different things with you. But drinking half of your body weight in ounces of water. Are you familiar with that, Greg?
Mm-hmm.
That
I've heard
thought, that
that. Yeah.
idea? Yeah. So that to me is like, it doesn't, so there again, it doesn't have to be exactly half your body weight. It doesn't have to be over, what I mean? It's not an exact number, but the point is that you shoot for an amount or an about that amount. So just using round numbers, right? Let's say you're 200 pounds. Which is exactly about where I'm at, right? For as my weight. So 100 ounces of water. So if a half liter or even a liter is about 33, I need to consume about 3 liters of water per day. Now that's throughout the entire day. So I think that people will say, well, it doesn't taste good and it doesn't this and water's boring, which, we can get into how maybe they can spice some things up. But the idea is that if you can that's a simple basic, that if you can get yourself hydrated, you're probably, so one thing that's happened for me as I've tried to do that for myself is that headaches. A lot of times when I'll have a headache, it's because I'm dehydrated, or a lot of times it's in the first thing in the morning, right? So you go through the entire evening without drinking, obviously. And so you wake up a little dehydrated. Now, if I don't get that water consumption in relatively quickly after I wake up, I begin to get a headache. It took me a long time to think that it was because of my water intake. I used to drink pop and soda, caffeine. I used to think it was caffeine. So I would consume my pop first thing in the morning and think that that was what was fixing it. But as I've switched and moved more towards a water intake first thing in the morning, I try to get about a half liter, if not a full liter in within about an hour and a half total of me from waking up. That's kind of my goal to get going. So I've already had, so for example, we're recording this in the morning. So I've already had 1 liter of water this morning and I'm working on my second one as we speak. So, consistency. That's where that simple basic comes in. One other thing that's a little bit different than yours, Greg, is a little bit of strength training for myself. So I don't have a gym membership. I used to have a gym membership. I mentioned, like I said, I had a personal trainer there for the longest time. But one thing I've incorporated, and I actually did this during COVID, and it's really, I've brought them back out, and it's really been a great thing, is just some resistance bands.
Mm-hmm.
So at my age, I'm not looking to bulk up. I'm not looking to, do I want to look? So there again, goes back to that feeling. I want to feel strong. I want to feel like I look strong, whether it's in a shirt or sometimes this summer or whatever, right? So at the age of 50, yeah, I'm not going to look like I'm 20 years old, like some of these guys out there. But at the same time, yeah, I don't want to be, flabby and just not good for myself. So it's a feeling that I'm trying to strive for. But with that said, one thing I've incorporated into the last, say, 3 or 4 months is some strength training, just some resistance bands. You can pick them up on Amazon. That's where I got mine. They've got handles that come with them, door attachment. You can stick it into your door and do all kinds of exercises. I figured out, and that's the beauty of technology these days. You can actually do a quick search. You can do, I would say 80 to 90% of the same exercises that you would do at a gym with resistance bands.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be as simple as air squats, and that doesn't require any weight. I just do squats. See how many squats you can do today, folks, and then see how difficult it is for you to get off the couch tomorrow. So yeah, if you get in the habit of doing, I do 3 sets of 20. I do 3 sets of 20 air squats. No weight, just, you can do that anywhere at any time. Try that. And I promise you, if you haven't done squats in a while, you'll be feeling it. But the good news is if you make that a habit, eventually you're going to start building some strength. And that's where obviously some of this health pieces comes in as well. So yeah, hydration, definitely, some strength training. I'm also trying to do walks. One gift that I received for Christmas was a treadmill. I actually have it off to the side of me here today. And it's cold here in Indiana. That's always been a difficult problem for me, is right. I can't get outside when at least I don't choose to get outside when it's 30, 40 degrees outside. I just don't enjoy that, right? When it's too cold to be outside, or cold for me. Anyways, I got a treadmill for Christmas, and I'm on this thing, I would say every day, but I'm going to get on today. As soon as we jump off here this afternoon, or when we get done with this recording, I'm gonna get on and get my walk in. And I try to get 2 to 3 miles in of a walk. And it's a brisk pace. I'm not breathing to the point where, I'm not gasping for air, but it's just a brisk pace. I'm, just moving. I've got some tunes popped in my ear, or I'm listening to a program, trying to increase my personal development. Anyways, those are some of the basic disciplines that have really moved the needle for myself. I've down probably 15 or almost 20 pounds here in the first 6 weeks of the year.
Nice.
And it's just by doing these simple basics. That's what the encouragement comes from today. So anyways, any thoughts on that? Anything like that ring for you?
Well, congrats, man. 15 to 20 pounds. That's really good, man. I didn't know
I
you were that
appreciate
far
it.
along. I knew you were crushing it, but that's awesome.
Yes. So it's the discipline. So I mentioned that in an episode or two ago, is that I'm pretty good. When I make the decision, I'm great at the gate. I can shut everything off. So it's like even my food, I can get my food dialed in pretty good. Right now I'm struggling with, I still crave sweets, or I'll crave, chips or something like that, crunchy in my mouth. So that's kind of what I'm there. Again, it's that chatter. If it's without that discipline, those are the things that are going on in my mind right now. But as far as jumping on the treadmill, getting my walk in, getting my water in, those have been, I've built those habits up enough where I don't even think about them. It's like you said, they're not even chatter in my mind anymore. I don't even think about it. Getting my 3 liters of water in, I probably do more than that, to be honest with you. And it's just because it's just part of the habit of me just continuously drinking. So I appreciate that, because yeah, it's not easy. Once again, it's not easy every day, but it's just setting yourself up for success. It's those simple basics that's going to lead to the more success at the end of the day. That's exactly what this conversation is all about today. So yeah, I appreciate the acknowledgement, because yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then one thing you mentioned about the water, kind of going back to the discipline, you mentioned, some people, because I was this person back in the day too. I used to drink the soda in the morning and
Yeah.
not a lot of water. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't taste like anything. But for me, I was now knowing what I know now about discipline and where I want to be in 2 years or 6 months or whatever. It's, well, am I making an excuse? Am I being lazy? And these are questions that I ask myself. Water, yeah, it doesn't taste like anything really, but it doesn't taste horrible. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I agree.
it's not burning my throat. It's not like doing any, like, it's just bland, and I totally get that. But again, it's going back to, well, this is gonna benefit me, and I need to do this every day for the rest of my life. So you might as well, like you said, you can find some ways to enhance it, throw some lemon in there, or do whatever you have to do to enhance it. But after a while, it just becomes normal that you're just drinking water or doing whatever that habit is. And it really is just getting over that initial emotion of, well, water tastes bland, I don't want to drink it, as opposed to just do it. It's going to benefit you. And again, going back to the discipline, I'm kind of coming off of that road, but that's really, where I'm at right now. And just, it's the only thing that's going to move the needle. Cause if you don't keep making that excuse, or you're lazy to yourself, and I've been guilty of this for a lot of my life, but really asking myself, well, I don't want to take those vitamins because sometimes I choke on the pill or whatever. And it's like, whatever. It's, well, just do it. You're going to thank yourself later. And nobody else is here coming to, save your health. So it's up to me, and that's it.
It's up to me. It's up to me. It's up to you, the listener listening to
Hmm.
us today. It's up to you. Take 100% responsibility. We mentioned that earlier today in this episode. So when I first heard that the first time several years ago, it's like, you just need to take responsibility for everything that's going on in your life. Do we have influences outside that sometimes we don't have control over? Yes. But what we do have the ability to do is to respond to those things. We can
Hmm.
react or respond to those things differently. That's the challenge that I want to leave for you as we exit this episode today, is that taking 100% responsibility for your health, for your wealth, and your legacy is going to set you up further than you can ever imagine in a relatively short period of time, which is why it's so exciting. So yeah, I appreciate that. Maybe we'll get into a little bit some of the supplements and things like that. I know I don't want to take too long on this episode. We've already gone quite a bit already, which is fun. That's the best part about these episodes. But at the same time, yeah, maybe we'll come back and share some of the exact things that we're also doing to try to enhance, make things a little bit more tolerable, to help yourself not only feel better, but from a vitamin standpoint, get some of the minerals that you're missing, that kind of thing. That has definitely helped me in my health journey as well. So let's move on to the wealth piece. And I want to introduce to you, once again, I refer back to Jim Rohn all the time. So inside of the Challenge to Succeed, he talks about the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And he talks about that usually there's only about 5% of the people in the conferences that he would host. Right? So he'd be talking to thousands of people at a time. And he said there's about 5% of the people that will go out and get this book, Richest Man in Babylon. So then he would pose the question, are you going to be part of that 5%? And I'm like, and I'm listening to it. This, I mean, I'm like, heck yeah, I am. So, anyways, I went out and got it. So here it is. I've got my copy of Richest Man in Babylon. So that would be my encouragement for you. This would be a great piece to add to your library, right? Read this book. I just want to go over just a couple of things in terms of this book will help you if you understand that this is all about the basics in terms of wealth. If you're trying to build wealth into your life, this book is a great resource to get started on it. And the one thing I want to share out of it 100% is that he talks about at the very beginning of the book that if you really want to build true wealth, you need to set aside or work towards setting aside at least a minimum of 10% of what you earn is yours to keep. Now sit with that for a second and think about that. Now, if you're working paycheck to paycheck, if you literally don't have a nickel at the end of the month because you're overextended, or even heaven forbid you're overextended to the point where you're paying out more than what you're earning in, that's where you need to go to work. That's where those simple basics of figuring out what your resources are, figuring out what your finances are, knowing where your finances are going but setting yourself and getting yourself to the point where you're saving a minimum of 10% of what you earn is yours to keep. Now you decide what you're going to do with it, whether you're going to invest that into an investment account. But it's the point is that it's yours to keep and it's yours to invest for your future. It doesn't go to the government. You're not paying it in taxes. Some people will have it in 401ks. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy just because you don't have control over it. That's a discussion for another day. But the point is that for myself, one thing that I do every 2 weeks is I have an investment account that it literally just draws it right out of our checking account and it pulls it right in automatically. And it's an investment account. So I take those funds and then I use them to invest into our future, whether I'm trying to save up for a down payment on a real property. I'm big on precious metals, right? So gold, silver, a lot of times I'll save my money in precious metals as well. You might be a Bitcoiner, which is fine. I'm not necessarily one of those people, but at the same time, if Bitcoin's your thing, that might be something to invest in as well. But the point is that you're going to save up this 10%, a minimum. The goal would be to be more than that. Right? You can live off 50% of your income and invest the rest. Just imagine how quickly you could build some wealth into your life. But yeah, that's probably the one basic thing that I want to leave for you with The Richest Man in Babylon. I would recommend you get that book. Go to Amazon today. It doesn't cost very much. It'd probably be less than $10 on Amazon today. Get The Richest Man in Babylon and read that book and consume that book. Like think through it and try to strategize within your own life how you can implement some of those ideas today, because it's written in the past. The story is about the past, Babylon times. But then you can obviously put some of those strategies into your life today, which is what my big encouragement is for you. So, any thoughts on that as far as discipline and the simple basics, as far as from a wealth standpoint, Greg?
No, I love it. It's, pay yourself first and then set it and
Yes,
forget it. That's
yes,
what you're kind of preaching there.
right.
And that's the discipline. If you set it up in the beginning, you really need to have that discipline once. As long as some catastrophic event doesn't kind of come into your life or whatever, but as long as you're, staying in stride with that, then you really just need that discipline one time. And then, like you said, you can use it for any type of investment, for savings, for, children, whatever, kind of suits your lifestyle. But yeah, I love it. Pay yourself first and then set it and forget it. It's two basic principles that you can easily do right now.
So if like once again, folks, if you're struggling with that, if you're struggling to make ends meet at the end of the month, start there. Figure out why that's happening. Eliminate some expenses, increase your income. We've talked about building businesses here on the podcast before. There's different ways to increase your income, increase the value that you're providing in the marketplace. Those are discussions that we've had in the past. I would recommend you go back to some of the episodes we've had those discussions in. But there's multiple different ways to reduce your expenses and then add to your value, add to your income, and then save the difference. Minimum 10% into an investment account of some kind of your deciding would be definitely a discipline that you can start implementing right away, like Greg said. And I definitely recommend you start doing that. I wish I would have done it sooner, but at the same time, if you start today, start the process of planning that today. I promise you'll be happy with this future self that you're working towards. So then let's move into the legacy piece. So one unfortunate story, or part of my story, is that when my father passed, he didn't have anything set up. He didn't have a will set up. There's anything. He didn't have anything set up. So when he passed, it's unfortunate, but there's a huge bill, and it calls when you're laying someone to rest, when you're burying someone, the mortuaries, and they're very expensive. If anybody doesn't know, they're very expensive. And I'll never forget, we were working out the deal with the gentleman for my father. He was going to be buried next to my mom and all those kinds of things, which is that part of it was set up. But then he gave me the bill, and I about had a cow. I was like, holy cow. I thought to myself, where am I going to get that money? I had no idea. I had no idea what I was going to do. So my brother and I so my mom's passed obviously now too, right? So it's just my brother and I, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. We didn't know how we were going to work it out. The gentleman obviously worked with us, right? Thank goodness. And so we worked out a plan to pay it back. But the point is that my father didn't have anything set up. And so we had to go through this process of getting a hold of his assets and figure out what bank accounts, just all of the stuff. And I get it. It's time consuming. I get it. We don't want to think about our own death in the future. But what I'm encouraging you to do today, part of this legacy piece, is getting those things set up for yourself now. And I did it instantly. It's like, as soon as I went through that experience in my own life, I told my wife, I came home. I'm like, I don't care if like, we don't have much at this point because we didn't. I don't care. We need to get this set up because I don't want my family, my kids, whatever, whoever, to have to go through this for myself. I want somebody to be able to read off a form and say, okay, this goes here, this goes there. Here's what, you know what I mean? I wanted all that to be set in place. So that would be my challenge for you today on this episode is if you don't have any of those things set up for yourself, I don't care how old you are, whether you're 20, whether you're 30, 40, 50, doesn't matter. Do it. Get the process started. There's so many different simple ways to do these things these days. We actually went out and invested in, and we set up a trust for the Wilson family as well. That's, once again, that's a discussion for another day. That's not my expertise, but that's something I sought after going through this experience to help me have that little more layer of predictability that once, if something did happen to me, like for example, with my father, it was 6 months from the time he found out to the time he passed was 6 months. Now I get it. You can get a lot of things done in 6 months. That's not what I'm saying, but it happened a lot faster than what he was even assuming. So he was putting off and procrastinating and putting off. I'll never forget a week or two right before he passed. He's like, yeah, I've got it. I've got a meeting with the lawyers set up. And I'm like, Dad, you've got to get this set up now, like today, like now. And he didn't get it. It's like he still wasn't moving very fast. He really thought that he was, I guess, going to pull through and live forever, I guess. I don't know. But that really set a lot of fire under me to make sure that I go out there, get these wills, set up the life insurances. I had an episode recording, a couple of recordings with a good friend, Gary Prinkton. Had a couple of episodes with him talking about life insurance and how important that is for your life. Go back and refer back to those episodes. That was fantastic as well. But anyways, just wanted, I know this is, I kind of rambled on here about the legacy piece because I'm so passionate about this, right? Because it hurt so bad to have to go through that, not only losing my father, but then being in so much disarray from a life standpoint. It's like literally not having a clue how I was going to figure all that out. Now we did, but it could have been so much easier. And it will be now for the Wilsons moving forward because I won't allow that to happen. But my point is for you listening to me today, if you don't have any of those things set up for yourself, go to work and figure out what that means. If we can help you, if I can help you kind of point you in the right direction, reach out to me. The info or the email is always the same, info@richmind.co. Let us know. And I'll at least try to point you in the directions and the things that I did, the resources that I went and sought after. And then I can point you in the different directions. I can introduce you to Gary as far as if you need to start implementing some life insurance into your life. He's a fantastic resource. Anyways, any thoughts on the legacy piece? I kind of went on and on there because, like I said, it's such a big pain point for me that I just really want to drive that home to folks today.
No, I think I would kind of wrap it up with just goes back to having that peace of mind of knowing that, your family is taken care of. You don't have to do anything anymore at this point. And then just, again, taking the responsibility of getting it all, and organized, experiencing from your dad what he didn't do. You're doing the opposite and, you're benefiting your family and, just kudos to you because it's another thing that's just not on your to-do list that you're, oh, I got to do that. And, oh, it's 6 months from now. Oh, I still got to do that. And it's getting rid of that mental chatter of no, it's done, not to worry about it. Let's worry about some other things that are going to come up because, life inevitably, your to-do list it's always there. So I love that. Just, take responsibility and just get rid of that mental chatter and then set it up. I couldn't say it better myself, Randy.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's been when I take those big pieces off my to-do list, it allows me to free up into to doing more of the basics, to focus more on my health, to focus on more building my wealth, to do those things, to hit record on the podcast on today, to record this episodes today. It allows me to do those things that are going to keep building. So it's like everything keeps stacking. So you can either be stacking in a negative direction or you can start stacking in a positive direction and start building some momentum. So when you start building and stacking these disciplines within your life with these simple basics, that's been my experience is that I wasn't necessarily taught any of these things growing up. And so when I was starting to be exposed to them from Earl Nightingale, from Jim Rohn, from Robert Kiyosaki, from all of the different mentors that I've had, and you start stacking those positive wins, it's like, wow, it's like you become an active participant in your life and it really starts to be fun. Now, is there challenges? 100%. Now, it's not perfect all the time because I'm not proclaiming that it is, but it becomes more fun. Life becomes more of a joy. You look forward to the days versus dreading getting up, doing the mundane tasks that you don't necessarily want to do. So you start doing the things that that you want to do to fulfill this future self, this discipline that of this vision that you have for yourself moving forward, which has been so much fun. So, anyways, man, yeah, I think we're gonna pull this one in for a close. Any more final closing thoughts about the basics, habits, discipline, anything like that before we wrap this one up today?
I mean, I would just kind of reiterate the word of the year. I know we kind of touched on that a little bit, but yeah, I know we're kind of in the summertime when this episode drops, but it's never too late to have a word of the year. You can even Google, what that looks like or examples. I would really incorporate that into, just your year, your day, whatever that looks like, just to set that intention up because it's pretty powerful.
Love that. Yeah. So your word of the day, it almost becomes a mantra. You just remember it. You're thinking about it all the time, which then helps you get through those difficult parts of life, which we're all having at time to time. It's never perfect all the time. It just helps you kind of bring that to the forefront, which I love that. Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, that's something we haven't discussed yet, is having that word of the year, or word of the day, word of the month, even. You can change it often.
Sure.
But yeah, having a word for the year. I love that for sure. So the next episode, folks, we're actually, Greg mentioned it here at the beginning of this episode. He just finished up on it was a virtual conference of a Tony Robbins event. So we briefly talked about, he went to the beginning piece of the Tony Robbins event in an episode or two ago. You can refer back to that one to kind of piggyback off what we're going to discuss today. Before we hit record today, he was going over all the different types of things that that were being discussed within that program. Yeah, he was actually just almost like beaming through the screen right at me. He was so excited to be able to share those things with me, which makes me excited to be able to bring those to you, the listener. So we're excited to bring that information to you as well. So go out there, have a fantastic day. The email info@richmind.co, questions, concerns. If we can help you, support you in any way, we would greatly love to do that. Reach out to us. That would be a lot of fun. If you wouldn't mind sharing this episode with your family and friends, if you found value in it, if you wouldn't mind helping us spread the Rich Mind podcast as far and as wide as we possibly can, we would greatly appreciate that. And make sure you like and subscribe on whatever platform choice that you have. Make sure you don't miss an episode. We definitely want to come back and try to add as much value as you possibly can to your life moving forward. So go out there, set up some of these basics, set up some of this discipline in your life. And I promise you, in a relatively short period of time, you're going to be in a totally different space. You're going to build some momentum towards this dream life that you're really shooting for. And Greg and I are both pulling for you. And it's going to be super exciting to hear success stories moving forward. So go out there, as I mentioned, have a fantastic day. We look forward to coming back in the next episode again very soon. Until then, bye now.